In this video we're looking at watering lithops. These are a group of plants from South Africa. They're succulents, they belong to a family called mesums, and we're going to take a look at how and when to water them from when they're young seedling plants right through until when they're at a flowering stage. James Lucas from Succulents Australia is going to tell us all about it.
Yeah, this is what we call pricking out seedlings. These seedlings are about a bit older than 12 months, and we're putting 5 in a pot, and you can see they're going quite easily. Saki's pretty quick at this. She picks up a handful and pops it. I think one of the things you've got to try and get the roots down.
And again, these are coming out of fairly dry soil into quite moist soil.
Just moistened soil. I like it to be moist in the beginning because you can actually make a nice hole and get the root going down the hole. Whereas if it's dry, it's really hard to make a hole in there. They all fall apart, you know, it all falls in.
So after you've finished doing this, are you going to fertilise these plants?
Yeah, they will be. I'm waiting for a bit more potting to be done, but they will be lightly fertilised and watered, and we're actually going to give them a bit of vitamin B. Some people call that Gromax, and that's a bit of a stimulant. It helps the plant form a symbiotic relationship with the soil. Most plants have fungal relationships with soil, and this vitamin B helps create that sort of situation, and helps with the uptake of fertilizer and things like that, and also root initiation. That's the other thing, and I'll show you a little bit of root initiation. We started this potting process about 2 weeks ago, and I just thought I will show you a couple of ones that are what they're doing now with the roots. Now these were potted approximately 2 weeks ago, so I'll pick out, I don't know, I'll just pick out a really nicely coloured one here. This one's not so obvious, but you can sort of see it has new white roots, and it's definitely gaining acceptance in the soil. You can see this is actually dried now. These haven't been watered in that time period, so it really is time to give them a water now, and that is definitely new root development.
So when you're talking about watering lithops, this is autumn or fall, if you like.
Yes, this is their rainy season. This is when you start. After extremely dry summer in Africa, this is when they do start to get a little bit of autumn rain. Probably not as much as here in Australia. Oh, but look at that. Look at all the roots on that. New white roots, and it's holding the soil. See, if this was just poked in now, like Saki was just putting them in, it would not lift out that much soil. So this is now already developed in 2 weeks, a whole lot of new feeder roots, which are holding the soil together.
So these have been watered?
They went into moist soil.
Right, yep.
And they haven't been watered because I want to leave them dry for a little while, and then I'm going to water and feed them all together.
Right, so that'll be in another few weeks?
No, it'll be very soon, because these are, it's quite dry now.
Yep.
And I'd like to get it a bit moist and a bit more growth performance, because we're looking at growing these. They're still very small. I'd like to be able to sell this in another year.
So if we look at some of the larger lithops, we're seeing that they'll be coming into flower now.
They are, yeah, just beginning.
So with those larger ones, the watering with those?
You can water during the flowering, but if you want to try and pollinate them, you can't water them when you're pollinating them because it can destroy the pollen on the flowers. But this is the growing season for them. This is a plant flowers when the season is perfect for it, and then that's their time to breed, divide, grow, all that type of stuff. So that's when you want to give them water.
So you can water them up until the flower opens.
Yeah,
and as soon as it starts to open, you don't want to?
Well, I don't want to because I want to pollinate the flowers.
And you want the seeds as well?
I want the seeds. So the thing is, I let them go dry for that couple of weeks while they're flowering.
Yep.
Because the flowers only last a couple of weeks, and then they die off, and then you just continue watering.
Do you wait for the seed pods to first with the watering?
No, you water over the seed pods.
Yep.
Until they show real dryness, then you can't water them, because the Lithops seed is quite unique because they actually open with rain.
So with watering, and we're talking about sort of autumn, fall watering?
Yeah, autumn they have proper rainfall, but so you really give a good watering But you know, if you want to demonstrate like a summer watering, like you want to just water them just lightly, just that's not a watering. That's just wetting the tops of them. You know, that's not going in. See, it just wets it a little bit. That's a summer watering.
Right. And if you were looking at a proper watering,
In winter, I actually will go over them like this. See how I flood the pot?
Yep.
The pot's flooded. Now, that'll soak in, and I go right to the edges. See how I'm watering along the line?
Yep.
I'm making sure that 2 pots are watered across each tray. And you've got to try and get a light sprinkle so that it doesn't wash the soil too much. Now, what I call a proper watering is once I've done this over once, that's a good centimetre of water in there. Now that can actually often run out around the edges of your pots. So I will go back for a second watering now. So I actually water twice. And this is what I call a really good watering. This will go to near the base.
So you're also using a fairly soft watering wand.
Very soft, because otherwise with a little plant like this, it's really easy to wash the gravel. And you'll notice I'm just passing over it. I don't stay on top of it. And you can even see the perlite floating around a little bit in the top. Now I would consider these probably quite well watered. What we'll do, we'll let it soak in for a little bit. I'll show you a couple of stretched lithops. Another problem you can get with overwatering, these are plants that we grow here, they get stretched. So they're really coming above their natural line. You know, this same variety here, more natural, a lot shorter. So this is one of the indications of too much water. There's a few varieties it happens to more than others. Look at that one, that's overstretched.
Right.
And they're looking a bit ugly. A lithop looks really nice when they're like these, short, fat and compact. That is a very good indication of an overstretched plant.
So once they've overstretched like this, can they come back down?
It's really, really difficult. They rarely do.
So
it sort of ruins them for a long time. I think prolonged starvation of water could possibly help them reduce in size eventually. Pollination Smargard, and that is a bit difficult.
So although they're stretched, they're not actually as overstretched as
some of them,
because it's naturally a taller grower.
Yeah, it is a tall grower, but it does seem to absorb water much more than some of the others. And here's another indication here. This is one. This is Optica rubra. This one has a bit of difficulty shedding its skin. You've really got to try to dry this one out. And you can see like most of it is all dried out and gone, but this one's still hanging on to its old leaf a little bit. But if you do water them too much, that's leaf would all be up in here, and the new plant will have trouble breaking out of it. So that is what can happen if you overwater when they're shedding their leaves. That's a pretty good indication of a plant that's had far too much water and it's really having trouble drying up the leaf. See how it's split badly down the side there? It's a bit elongated. This plant, you know, is really having some difficulty shedding its old skin.
When they're flowering, you can water them, but if you want them to flower and pollinate them, you're not going to.
Yeah, you really must leave them dry during this period. So when you see the buds starting to come up, you can actually go and water them then. You could water that now because you're not going to really interfere with the pollen. But this stage here, when they're starting to open, you could actually destroy or ruin the pollen in them. So it's actually better to leave them dry out for this period.
That's it. So we've watered these out of season, but there's also actually a reason for this, isn't there?
Yeah, well, next week we hope to pot these. So I actually want these really firm and plump, full of water, ready to go in their new soil mix. Because the new soil mix has got some food in it, some extra water, and I really want these plants ready to grow.
So you've watered them 2 weeks or so before watering. The soil will dry out between now and when you pot them up a fair bit.
It will a little bit, but
Yeah.
the plant will stay plump because these things store water.
Yep.
I can feel that. That's quite heavy now.
Yep.
And this is often my gauge of knowing whether a plant's watered or not watered. That's quite heavy.
There'll be a complete set of notes on watering lithops through the season in the notes below the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for regular updates on a whole range of succulent plants, including other mesems, and as always, good luck with your gardening.